It happened during my daughter's baby shower. I was standing in the kitchen, cradling a glass dish of spinach quiche I'd baked that morning, when my son-in-law raised his glass for a toast. My daughter, Rebecca, was glowing, 7 months pregnant, one hand resting lightly on her belly, the other holding his. Everyone fell quiet as Caleb grinned and said, "To my brilliant wife, the future mother of our genius baby," and to her mother, who hopefully remembers she's at the right party today.
People laughed.
Some gave the polite kind of laugh that hides discomfort, others full-on cackled. One woman, someone I didn't even know, muttered, "Oh no, poor thing," like I'd just wandered in from the street. And Caleb didn't stop. "We've been a little worried lately," he added with a wink. "But if she starts telling you the same story 3 times, just smile and nod. That's what we do." I stood frozen, quiche in my hands, room spinning, and the only person not laughing was Rebecca. But she didn't defend me. She just looked away. That was the moment. That exact breathless, humiliating moment when I realized I was no longer seen as a person. I was a caricature, a problem to be managed, a joke. I didn't cry. I didn't drop the dish or make a scene. I simply turned, placed the quiche on the table, and walked to the back patio. My hands were trembling, but I needed the air. I needed space to think. Because for the last 6 months, I'd felt something shifting. Strange comments from Caleb. Unexplained cancellations of my appointments. My favorite radio station replaced with an app one didn't recognize. My banking login changed for my convenience. The calendar on my phone reset. The odd way people at the market looked at me when I paused mid-sentence. I chalked it all up to age, to stress, to grief. I'd lost my husband Peter last year. But now, standing under the patio lights with the hum of party chatter behind me, it was so painfully clear. Caleb was trying to erase me.
Slowly. Publicly.
And Rebecca, she was letting him. That night, I stayed until the last guest left. I hugged Rebecca, said thank you, and walked to my car alone. But I didn't go home. I drove to the park, Peter, and I used to walk in every Sunday after church. I sat on the same bench we always did, pulled out the notebook I kept in my purse for grocery lists, and started a new page. I wrote, June 10th, Caleb publicly implied I'm losing my memory. In front of 30 people. Rebecca didn't stop him. I closed the notebook and drove home. The next morning, I tried to log into my bank account, locked. A message read, "Access restricted by primary controller." Primary controller? I was the account owner. I checked the joint account, Peter, and I once shared. It had been renamed Estate Reserve, Handler, C.R. Whitman. My full name wasn't even on the login screen anymore. My throat tightened. I tried the backup password, Peter, and I had used for years. Nothing. I texted Rebecca. Me. Did you change something with the bank?
Her. What?
No, why would I? Me. Account locked. Can't log in. Her. Maybe it's a glitch. Caleb handles most of that now for you, right?
For me.
That phrase hit like a slap. I scrolled back through past texts. A pattern emerged. Anything involving finances, medication, or appointments had somehow become Caleb's territory. When had I given him permission?
Had I?
That night, I searched the medicine cabinet. My thyroid pills were there, new label, same dose. Or so I thought. But then I noticed the color of the pills was off. Paler.
Rounder.
I called the pharmacy. Hi, this is Margaret Langley. I wanted to confirm my prescription refill. Just making sure it's correct. The pharmacist hesitated. That refill was picked up last week by your designated caregiver. Excuse me? I don't have a caregiver. It says here, Caleb Whitman. Authorized pickup. I didn't sleep that night. I stayed up, sitting at the kitchen table with every light on in the house. My notebook in front of me. The pill bottle beside it. And I wrote everything. Every time I'd felt off. Every odd appointment. Every time Caleb had walked into my house with a smile and a subtle jab. And that's when I remembered something from 2 weeks ago. Caleb had insisted on helping set up the TV in my bedroom. To make it easier, he said. I told him I was fine with the remote. But he spent 20 minutes fiddling with the wall mount, moving it, adjusting it. That night, I searched. I took a flashlight and inspected the bracket. And I found it. A tiny black lens embedded in the bottom corner of the TV mount. A pinhole camera, facing directly at my bed. My knees buckled. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I looked directly into the lens and whispered, "Game on." Then I picked up my notebook and wrote, June 11th, surveillance device found. Hidden camera in TV mount. No more guessing. It's real. That was the night I stopped doubting myself. And the night I started fighting back. Before we continue, take a moment to let me know where you're watching from in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe to more powerful stories like this one. The next morning, I opened every drawer in my house. Kitchen, bathroom,
Bedroom.
I wasn't searching for lost items. I was searching for control, something that still belonged to me. I found more than I bargained for. In the linen closet, beneath a stack of rarely used pillowcases, I found a neatly folded document with my name printed at the top. Medical proxy authorization. My name. Caleb's signature. A notary's stamp. And a signature that looked almost like mine, but off. Slightly too rounded. A little too careful. Forged. I sat down on the floor, right there in the hallway, and reread every line. According to this document, I had already granted Caleb full medical decision-making authority in the event of cognitive deterioration or diminished capacity as observed by a medical professional. And then it hit me. The recent calls I'd gotten from that new clinic, the ones I dismissed as wrong numbers. The missed voicemails. The calendar alert that showed a memory test scheduled at a nearby neurology center. They weren't random. They were planted. I wasn't just being gaslit. I was being set up. My hands were cold as I flipped open the yellow notebook and scribbled. June 12th. Found forged medical proxy form. Document names Caleb as decision-maker for mental health outcomes. Signature, not mine. Notarized, but I was never present. Setting, linen closet. Witnessed and documented. I snapped photos of every page, every pill bottle, every label, every screen. Then I took the document to the sunniest room in the house, Peter's old study. It was quiet, lined with books, and untouched since the funeral. He had always kept a scanner and a flash drive locked in the drawer of his desk. I found it easily. My fingers still remembered the combination. 3 numbers. Our wedding anniversary. I scanned the medical proxy. Then scanned the pill bottle label, Caleb's name written in bold under, pickup authorized. Then the calendar screenshot showing the neurology appointment. 3 files. 3 truths. Then I slid the USB into my purse and stood at the doorway of the study for a long time. The late morning sun filtered through the lace curtains Peter loved, lighting up the old mahogany shelves. I could almost hear him saying, "Don't let them win, Maggie. You're not some story waiting to end." I didn't intend to cry, but I did. Not because I was afraid, but because I had spent the last 6 months shrinking myself into someone polite, someone non-confrontational, someone manageable. And it had nearly cost me everything. That night, I did something I never thought I would. I played into it. The forgetfulness, the hesitations, the soft-spoken pauses. I pretended. I called Caleb and told him I was a little foggy about the banking situation and asked if he could stop by tomorrow to help me review some numbers. He jumped at the offer. "Of course, Margaret. No problem at all," he said, voice smooth. Too smooth. "I'll bring over the new paperwork too. There are some deed adjustments we should go over. Just to simplify things in case anything happens." He said it with such casual cruelty. In case anything happens. Like I was a broken sink. A flickering light bulb. I smiled into the phone and said, "Thank you, Caleb. That would really help." And I wrote it all down. June 12th, evening. Caleb accepted meeting under false pretense. Mentioned new property paperwork. Indirect coercion attempt predicted. Then I made my move. I opened Peter's old laptop. Still dusty. Still slow. But it worked. I created a Dropbox folder called If Something Happens to Me and uploaded the scanned documents. The photos. a typed account of every incident so far. Then I emailed the link to a new email I'd made that morning. langlywatch2023@protonmail.com. Private, encrypted, and mine alone. Then I did something far more dangerous. I set up the second iPad. Peter used to use it for crossword puzzles. I hadn't touched it in months, but I charged it, hid it inside a hollowed-out book in the living room shelf, and paired it to my phone's audio recording app. I was no longer just protecting myself. I was baiting a trap. The next morning, Caleb arrived with coffee and a fake smile. "Decaf," he said, like I should be grateful. I played my part perfectly. "Thank you, dear. I do forget what I'm drinking these days." I smiled and sipped. Didn't flinch when I tasted the bitterness. He opened his bag and pulled out a crisp folder. Real estate transfer forms. The house title. Durable power of attorney paperwork with highlighted signature lines. All blank. Except my name. "You've been such a trooper through everything," he said gently. "We just want to make sure you're protected. This makes it easier for everyone. You can trust me." I looked at the papers. I looked at him. And I nodded. But I didn't sign. I coughed softly and said, "Can we go over it tomorrow? I want to be clear-headed when I sign." Caleb smiled like a cat that caught a mouse playing dead. "Of course. Tomorrow's perfect." And then he stood up, patted my shoulder like I was 5 years old, and left the papers on the kitchen table like it was already decided. As he walked out, I leaned on the counter and waved him off like a grateful old woman. As soon as the door clicked shut, I locked it, pulled out the recording iPad, and hit save. Crystal clear audio. Every word. I uploaded it immediately to the Dropbox folder and added a note. June 13th, Caleb presented deed transfer plus POA. No witnesses. Coercive language captured.
Did not sign.
Audio archived. And I didn't cry. I didn't panic. I just cleaned the counter, folded the papers, and placed them neatly back in the folder. Let him think I was playing his game. Because he had no idea I was writing the rulebook. The next morning, I made the lemon loaf Caleb liked. Not because I cared, but because people like him lower their guard when they're comfortable. Familiar scents. Warm kitchen. An aging woman who looks like she's given up. He arrived 5 minutes early, with that same artificial charm stretched across his face. "You look bright today," he said, setting down his bag like he lived here. "Good sleep?" "Mostly," I replied. "I was up a little late, trying to remember your father's middle name." I watched his face carefully. No flicker. No suspicion. He wasn't listening. He never really did. Instead, he pulled the documents out again. This time they had sticky tabs marking where to sign. "This just makes sure everything's secure," he explained. "Your accounts, the house, your future care, it's just paperwork, Margaret. Everyone does it these days." He slid a pen across the table like it was already mine. I picked it up, held it between my fingers. I even uncapped it. "Would you mind getting me a glass of water first?" I asked, nodding to the fridge. "I've been a little dry this morning. Probably the medication again." His mouth curled into a tiny smirk. "Of course," he said. As he turned his back, I tilted the pen and whispered to the small phone hidden inside the fruit bowl. "Recording. Attempted coercion. Witness not present. Documents unsigned." I set the pen back down. When he returned, I looked at the forms again: property title transfer, financial guardianship, durable medical POA. Each one printed with my name in bold at the top and a line waiting at the bottom like a noose. "I'd just like Rebecca to see these," I said casually. Caleb's smile faltered. "You really don't need to involve her.
She's stressed.
The baby's due in a few weeks. And she'd want to be involved," I said sharply. He blinked. I let the silence fill the space between us. He tried again, softer now. "It's just a precaution. I mean, you've said yourself lately that it's been hard to keep up with things." That's when I leaned back and folded my hands in my lap. "Tell me something, Caleb," I said. "Do you remember where you were when Peter fell the second time?" He looked startled.
What?
"Of course I do. You told the doctor you were the one who called the ambulance." I tilted my head slightly. "But it was me. I was the one on the phone." You weren't even in the room. His eyes narrowed. Why bring that up now? I didn't answer. I just let the weight of it hang in the air. Then I stood up, slowly, like my knees were old and stiff. And I said, I'll review these this afternoon. Come by tomorrow. He started to argue but thought better of it. Instead, he muttered, sure, and left the folder on the table again before walking out. As soon as the door closed, I moved.
Fast.
I pulled the folded documents from the folder and took photos of each page. Every blank signature line. Every suspicious clause. I scanned them to the same flash drive, backed them up to the Dropbox, and added a new entry to my notebook. June 14th, POA and property transfer presented under pressure. Request for immediate signature denied. Stalling successful. Digital record made. Then I did something I never thought I'd have to do. I called an attorney. Not just any attorney. Irene Blanchard, a woman Peter had always said was the kind you hire when you want wolves to eat each other. She was semi-retired now, but I still had her number from a newsletter she sent last Christmas. I left a voicemail that simply said, "This is Margaret Langley. I'm being pressured to sign over my estate by a family member. I believe there's a larger pattern of abuse. I need help." She called back within 3 hours. We met that afternoon in her home office. I wore a hat, no makeup, just enough invisibility to move through town without raising suspicion. I handed her the folder and the flash drive. Irene took one look at the files and said, "He's not just gaslighting you. He's building a paper trail that ends with you in a care facility and your house in his name." "I know," I said. She tapped the folder and looked at me over her glasses. "Do you want to fight this or destroy it?" I looked her dead in the eye and said, "Both." She smiled. And just like that, I had someone in my corner. That night, I didn't sleep. Not because I was scared, but because for the first time in months, I had a plan. Caleb would come back tomorrow, expecting me to be docile,
Confused.
ready to sign. Instead, he'd walk into a trap. I made tea and baked another lemon loaf, left it on the counter like bait. Then I set up Irene's camera pen disguised as an ordinary click-top ballpoint and placed it beside the real documents. The plan was simple: let him talk. Let him confirm what he wanted. Let him hang himself. And if he didn't, well, I still had one more move he wouldn't see coming. Because earlier that night, I'd made a call to Rebecca and told her to come over tomorrow. Early. Before Caleb. She hadn't responded. But I knew my daughter, and I was betting everything that deep down, she still remembered who I was, who raised her. I wrote the final entry of the night. June 14th, 11:48 p.m. Legal contact established. Recording pen acquired. Caleb visit planned. Rebecca notified. Stage set. Tomorrow I'd let them talk. And finally, someone besides me would hear the truth. Rebecca hadn't responded to my message. No call. No text. But at exactly 9:13 a.m., I heard the knock, soft, hesitant. And when I opened the door, there she was. 7 months pregnant, eyes tired, wearing one of those oversized cardigans she used to steal from me in high school. Her gaze met mine for only a second before dropping to the envelope in her hand. "I don't know why I'm here," she said, "but I couldn't sleep last night after your voicemail." I stepped aside. She walked in. The scent of lemon loaf was already thick in the air. The pen camera, Irene's gift, sat beside the folder, disguised like nothing more than another old lady clicker pen. Rebecca sat at the kitchen table, hands folded in her lap, and asked, "What's going on, Mom?" I sat across from her and poured tea, just like I used to when she had friend troubles and geometry tests. Then I said carefully, "Do you remember when your father was in hospice? What you promised me?" She blinked. "I said I'd protect you." "You did," I nodded. "You said no matter what happened after he was gone, you'd watch out for me. Because he worried." Her jaw clenched. "I remember." I pulled the folder toward me and opened it slowly, page by page. I didn't show her the documents yet. I started with the basics: the locked bank account, the forged medical proxy, the wrong pills, the surveillance camera, the coerced appointments. At first, She listened quietly. Then her eyebrows pulled together, and she said, "Caleb wouldn't." And that's when I slid the iPad across the table and hit play. The audio wasn't dramatic. It didn't need to be. Just Caleb's voice from 2 days ago, calm, manipulative, saying, "She signs anything now. Just needs the right moment. This way, once I get her on the deed switch, we'll avoid probate. She won't remember it next week anyway." Rebecca's mouth dropped open. "That's his voice," I said. Unedited. Recorded from this very kitchen. She covered her mouth with one hand, the other resting over her stomach. The baby kicked then, hard enough that she startled. "I didn't know," she whispered. "He told me, he said you were declining. That you'd gone missing for hours. That you'd forgotten his name last week." "I pretended," I said. "Because it was the only way to find the truth." The front door opened without a knock. Caleb walked in, keys jangling, smile already forming as he called out, "Ready to sign some freedom, Margaret?" He stopped when he saw her. Rebecca stood slowly. The room went still. "Babe," he said, looking between us. "What's going on?" She didn't answer. Instead, she gestured to the folder. "Show me the documents." He hesitated. "It's just standard stuff. Your mom agreed to."
"Show me." Her voice had steel in it now.
I hadn't heard that tone since she stood up to her high school principal for suspending a friend. It had weight. Caleb sat down, opened the folder, and slid it toward her. She picked up the pen. Not to sign. To hold it. And then she clicked it.
Once. Twice.
The light blinked, recording. He didn't notice. Rebecca looked him dead in the eyes. "Explain to me what this is." Caleb scoffed. "It's just power of attorney stuff. Margaret said she needed help managing things." "I never said that," I interrupted. He shot me a look almost venomous, but masked it quickly. "She's confused. It's been hard. You know that." "I'm not confused," I said, standing. "I'm cautious. And I'm not signing a single thing you put in front of me without my lawyer present." Caleb stiffened. "Lawyer?" Rebecca's voice rose. "You didn't mention a medical proxy. Or that you were locking her out of her bank accounts. Or tracking her house with hidden cameras." The air was razor thin. He looked between us, the charm cracking. "This is insane. I've been helping her. I've done everything to make sure she's safe." "No," I said. "You've done everything to make sure I was silent." I leaned forward then, voice low, controlled. "You thought if you made me doubt myself, if you made others doubt me, you could steal this house, my savings, my freedom, before I even realized it was happening. But I was never losing my memory. I was memorizing every move you made." His face paled. Rebecca stared at him, waiting for any sign, any sliver of denial that might salvage his image. It never came. Instead, he muttered, "You don't understand what it's like. Working 2 jobs, trying to keep things moving. This house is a burden. She's alone. And you're about to have a baby. We need stability. Don't you get that?" Rebecca stood up, tears in her eyes. "You don't steal from people because you want stability. You ask. You care. You don't erase them." She reached for the folder, flipped through the pages, and began pulling them out, tearing them in half. "You're done," she whispered. "Don't come near her again. Don't come near me again. We're finished." He stared at her like he didn't understand the words. "You're making a mistake," he said. "No," she replied. "I'm fixing one." She walked to the door and opened it. "You need to leave." Caleb didn't move at first. Then, finally, he stood. His eyes met mine, sharp, hateful. But I didn't flinch. "Watch your back," he muttered. "Smile for the camera," I said. He blinked, then glanced down, finally noticing the blinking light on the pen. He left, slamming the door behind him. And Rebecca turned to me, shaking, and whispered, "Mom, I'm so sorry." I didn't want to believe it. I held her, longer than I had in years. And then I whispered back, "You're not the one who needs to apologize." That night, I uploaded the full recording from the pen to the Dropbox. I labeled it, June 15th, Caleb confronted in presence of Rebecca. Attempted coercion exposed. Legal response pending. Trust restored. Then I wrote the words I hadn't dared put on paper before. I'm not alone anymore. And for the first time in months, I believed it. I didn't hear from Caleb the next day. No calls. No texts. Not even a knock at the door. But silence from a man like that isn't peace. It's strategy.
So I didn't rest.
I got up early, baked sourdough, and waited for Irene's call. She had promised to dig into the notary who had witnessed my forged signature on the medical proxy. I didn't expect miracles, just movement. A single loose thread was all I needed. It came at 10:42 a.m. Irene's voice was sharp, even through the speakerphone.
Got it.
Her name's Lisa Greer, licensed notary, lives in Arlington. She notarized 5 documents for Caleb Whitman over the past 6 months, 3 for you, 2 for some business client of his. But I've never met her, I said. Exactly. There was a pause on the line. Then she added, I pulled her notary log. Your signature appears twice. The witness line? Left blank. No video record. No fingerprints. That's a violation. My breath caught. So, what does that mean? It means, Irene said slowly, we can file a fraud complaint. And once we do, every document he's submitted using that notary becomes suspect, including the property deed transfer he tried to push yesterday. The floor felt steadier beneath me.
Good, I said.
What's next? I'm filing the complaint today, she said. And I'm going to draft a cease and desist. He doesn't back off, we take it to court. That word again, court. It made my stomach flip, but not from fear. From something else. Resolve. After the call, I walked into Peter's study. I pulled out the box where he used to keep our tax returns. He was meticulous about records and sifted through files until I found what I was looking for. The ledger. It was a navy blue notebook, spiral-bound, with Peter's block handwriting on every line. He used to write down every monthly payment, every change in property value, every renovation cost down to the penny. And there it was. One line dated August 2004. Added Margaret's name to the deed. Dual ownership recorded. I blinked. I remembered that day. We had celebrated with ice cream. He said it was just paperwork, but I cried anyway because it felt like permanence.
Partnership. Proof.
I snapped a photo of the entry. Then another. I uploaded both to the Dropbox and added a new note to my file. June 16th, deed confirms co-ownership since 2004. Legal leverage secured. Irene notified. I texted her the photo. Her reply was instant. This just became airtight. I stared at the screen for a long time. Because airtight meant more than legal. It meant real. I wasn't imagining it. I wasn't overreacting. This wasn't about bitterness or pride. It was about truth. And I had it now. That night, Rebecca came by after work. She brought takeout and set it on the table without speaking at first. Then, as we ate, she said quietly, he's staying at a friend's place. Said he needed space. But he took his passport. I think he's planning something. I nodded. He knows it's crumbling, I said. People like him panic when the scaffolding starts to sway. She looked up. Do you want me to talk to a lawyer? I can give a statement. I reached across the table and placed my hand over hers. Not yet. But thank you. Just having you hear this? It means everything. She nodded. Then she hesitated. There's something else. What is it? She reached into her bag and pulled out a small, folded envelope. I found this in Caleb's home office. It was tucked in the back of a drawer, behind a photo frame. I opened it carefully. Inside was a printed email chain between Caleb and a man named Derek Folsom, a name I didn't recognize. The subject line read, Langley House Market Estimate. The most recent message was dated 2 weeks ago. Caleb, based on your description and square footage, I'd estimate the property between $860,000 to $890,000. Let me know when you're ready to list. I didn't realize I was holding my breath. Rebecca spoke softly. He was appraising the house behind your back. He'd already started drafting a listing. My pulse thudded in my ears. It was worse than I thought. He hadn't just planned to take it. He'd already chosen what it was worth without me. I flipped the page. The message before that was from Caleb. Once title clears, I'll be primary. Working on it now. You'll hear from me soon. Title clears. Not if I had anything to say about it. I scanned the email chain and uploaded it to the Dropbox. Another file. Another brick in the wall of evidence. Then I wrote, June 16th, 9:12 p.m., house appraisal attempted via third party, without owner consent. Proof of intent to sell obtained. Collusion documented. Rebecca sat beside me, her face pale. I don't know how I let it go this far, she whispered. You trusted someone you loved, I said. That's not a flaw. That's what he exploited. She wiped her eyes. I'm not just going to sit this out, Mom. Not anymore. I nodded. Then I handed her the yellow notebook. Then you need to read everything. And she did, page by page, hour by hour. Every humiliating moment. Every red flag I had forced myself to swallow. And when she closed it nearly 2 hours later, she looked older, angrier, stronger. I want to burn him to the ground, she said. No, I said gently. We let the truth do that. That night, as she slept on the couch, I opened my notebook and wrote one more line. Tomorrow we go public. I didn't tell Rebecca my full plan right away. Not because I didn't trust her, but because once something leaves your lips, it can't be taken back. And I needed this next move to be flawless, unshakable, bulletproof. So, the morning after we found the appraisal emails, I got up early, made coffee the way Peter liked it, just to steady my hands, and sat down at the computer. The Dropbox folder was ready. Dozens of files now. Scanned documents, forged signatures, recorded audio clips, screenshots of calendar changes and medical appointments, pharmacy logs, and the audio from Caleb's voice saying she signs anything now. But I added something new. A letter. Not to Caleb. To everyone else. I called it, If You Ever Wondered What Happened to Me. It was 2 pages. Sharp, clear, and honest. I didn't write it like a victim. I wrote it like a witness. You may have laughed when he joked about my memory at the baby shower. You may have thought it was harmless when he said I forgot things or got confused. You may have even believed him when he said I needed help. But what you didn't know was that every joke was a breadcrumb. Every story was setting the stage. Every step he took was meant to discredit me before I could defend myself. This is what elder abuse looks like in its early form. It doesn't start with screaming. It starts with erasure. Quiet, strategic, and wrapped in concern. Below you'll find every piece of evidence I've collected in the past 90 days. Read it. Watch it. Then ask yourself how many other stories like mine never get told. Then I attach the files. All of them. And scheduled the email to go out to 47 people, my church group, Peter's old friends, the HOA president, my pharmacist, Rebecca's OBGYN office staff, 2 of Caleb's clients I'd found on LinkedIn, even the notary who stamped the forged proxy. Scheduled for 7:15 a.m., enough time for inboxes to load before coffee. Enough time to ruin his day before it started. At 7:10, I opened the front door. The sky was still gray, morning dew settling across the lawn. By 7:16, I heard the first ping from Rebecca's phone in the other room. Then another. Then a dozen. She emerged, eyes squinting, holding the phone out like it had caught fire. Mom, did you? I nodded. I did. She scrolled in stunned silence. Oh my God. It's everywhere. My group text is lighting up. Janine forwarded it to the entire preschool staff. People are commenting on the Dropbox. I walked to the kitchen.
Come.
I poured myself a glass of orange juice. And then the phone rang. It was Irene. I just got it, she said, no greeting. And it's perfect. You're about to be the most dangerous person in his life. I'd like to think so. I also just got a call from the notary's office. Lisa Greer quit this morning. No comment. No statement. Just left. My guess? Caleb panicked. I smiled. Good. Also, Irene continued, you may want to check the comments on that Dropbox. Rebecca and I sat at the table, her reading out loud while I cleaned a spill that didn't exist just to keep my hands moving. I never liked the way Caleb talked about her. Always seemed off. Saw her at the market 2 weeks ago. Seemed perfectly sharp to me. This is horrifying. My aunt went through the same thing, and no one believed her. Tagging a lawyer friend. This needs to go to court. Rebecca looked up. They believe you. I nodded. Because now I can prove it. At 9:23 a.m., Caleb texted. Caleb, 9:23 a.m. You have no idea what you've just done. Take it down.
Now.
I replied with one word. Me.
No.
He didn't text back. Instead, at 11:06 a.m., Alyssa, his fiancée, posted a single sentence on her Facebook page. Sometimes you find out the man you loved is just a better liar than a partner. I'm done. Under it, dozens of comments poured in. And then her profile went dark. Profile photo changed. Engagement photos wiped. His name removed from every caption. By noon, Caleb's life was unraveling faster than I could have planned. But I wasn't done. Rebecca and I printed a hard copy of every piece of evidence, 3 complete sets. One for Irene, one for the court, and one we dropped off unannounced at the local news desk of Channel 5 Investigates. The receptionist raised an eyebrow. What's this? Evidence, I said, of elder abuse and property fraud. She hesitated. Ma'am, we can't just. Check the Dropbox link, I said, sliding a sticky note with the URL written clearly. And search the name Caleb Whitman. I'll wait. 15 minutes later, a producer came out to the lobby. I'd like to talk to you more, she said, voice low. Can we schedule an interview? Only if my name is protected until this goes to court. Deal. As Rebecca and I walked back to the car, she said, Are you sure about all this? I'm sure, I said. He made this war public when he humiliated me in front of strangers. Now, I'm just showing the receipts. Back home, I opened my notebook and wrote, June 17th, public exposure initiated. Media inquiry opened. Notary resigned. Fiancé left him. Community support rising. Caleb has not yet responded legally. Irene drafting next steps. Then I wrote something else, carefully, letter by letter. This is not revenge. This is survival with evidence. Because what Caleb failed to understand is that the older you are, the more you've already lived through. And the more someone tries to erase you, the deeper your roots hold. And I wasn't done planting seeds. 2 days after the Dropbox files went public, Irene called with a voice like steel wrapped in velvet. Caleb's lawyer just reached out. I set down my mug of tea, untouched. And they're calling it a misunderstanding, claiming you gave verbal consent for everything. No official statement yet, but they're clearly panicking. I told them if they wanted to clarify anything, they could do it under oath. I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was so predictable. Verbal consent. Misunderstanding. The oldest play in the book. And did they take the bait? They're requesting a private mediation. They want it quiet. Off the record. No judge. No public courtroom. Of course they did. Irene paused. I recommend we accept, but on one condition. We record everything. Wire. Video. Full transcript. You comfortable with that? More than comfortable, I said. I'm counting on it. The mediation was scheduled for Thursday in a sterile office suite downtown with a bowl of mints on the coffee table and furniture that screamed nobody makes eye contact here. I wore Peter's old blazer again. Navy blue. It still smelled faintly like cedar. When Caleb arrived, he didn't look at me. He just muttered something to his lawyer and sat down stiffly, the muscles in his jaw twitching like a man who knows the roof is collapsing. Irene smiled like a cat who'd just found an unattended roast. Thanks for coming, she said sweetly. Shall we begin? A court reporter was already seated, typing. A small red camera sat between us on the conference table. Just for clarity, Irene had said. So no one misremembers anything. Caleb's lawyer nodded. And we began. Mr. Whitman, Irene said, adjusting her glasses, can you confirm that you collected Margaret Langley's prescriptions on her behalf multiple times? He shifted in his seat.
Yes.
She asked me to. And yet there is no written record of that authorization. No voicemail. No email. Nothing. Just your word. He nodded. That's right. And can you explain why the medication bottles contained pills from a different manufacturer than her pharmacy typically uses?
I.
I don't know. They said it was a backorder or something. Even though the pharmacist we spoke to said no such switch occurred. His lips pressed into a thin line. She continued, and can you also explain why your voice was recorded in Margaret's kitchen stating, and I quote, she signs anything now. Just needs a little push. Was that a joke? Caleb hesitated. It was taken out of context. Irene smiled. Well, let's play the full context. She hit play on the tablet. His voice, clear and smug, spilled into the room. Rebecca was sitting behind me for moral support. I didn't look at her. I didn't need to. I could feel the heat rising from her cheeks. When the clip ended, Irene folded her hands. Context enough for you? Caleb's lawyer cleared his throat. We'd like to offer a proposal. A financial settlement. Immediate disconnection from the property. Full relinquishment of power of attorney. No, I said. They both looked at me. I don't want money. I want a signed admission of wrongdoing. And I want it filed. His lawyer started to object, but I raised a hand. And I want a public apology. In writing. Posted to the same business page where he listed my house for sale. If not, we go to court.
Public.
With everything. Irene smiled faintly. Your move, gentlemen.
Caleb was sweating now.
You're ruining my life. I looked him in the eyes, steady. You tried to erase mine. And for the first time, I saw it, not fear but recognition. That I wasn't the pushover he assumed. That his war had a worthy opponent. That I'd won more battles than he knew how to start. His lawyer leaned in, whispered something. Then, reluctantly, Caleb muttered, Fine. You'll have your apology. I nodded. You'll deliver it at the church. His eyes widened. Excuse me? Sunday. After service. You stand up in front of the people you laughed with at my expense, and you tell them the truth. Out loud. He started to protest, but Irene slid a printout across the table. Already drafted for you, she said. You can read it word for word, but the voice has to be yours. He stood. You're enjoying this. No, I said quietly. I'm remembering how to breathe. That night, I wrote in my notebook, June 22nd, mediation complete. Verbal confirmation recorded. Admission secured. Apology pending. Caleb off balance. Legal trap successful. The next morning, the apology draft was posted to his business page. Just 5 sentences, but enough. I, Caleb Whitman, acknowledge that my actions toward Margaret Langley were unethical and manipulative. I falsely claimed power over her medical and financial decisions and misrepresented her mental state for personal gain. I apologize to Margaret, her family, and the community for this behavior. I am terminating all attempts to access or influence her estate and property. I deeply regret the harm I've caused. The post was shared 218 times by noon. Every share a nail in the narrative he'd tried to build. But I didn't feel victorious. Not yet. Because a public apology is not accountability, it's a starting point. The real justice was still coming. And I would walk into it ready. The church was full. More than I expected. People always show up when they smell gossip or grace, and on that Sunday morning, both were in the air. Pastor Daniels had offered me the chance to decline, to handle everything privately. But I said no, because this was where it started. And it was going to end here, too. I wore a soft plum dress with the pearl earrings Peter gave me on our 25th anniversary. Not for Caleb. Not for show. For myself. Because dignity, once stolen, must be reclaimed in layers. Rebecca sat beside me in the front row, her hand resting protectively over her belly, a quiet reminder of the next generation watching. Beside her, Irene kept her coat draped over her lap and a small camcorder tucked beneath it, recording everything. At exactly 11:58 a.m., Pastor Daniel stepped up to the altar and said gently, "Before we conclude today's service, One of our members has something he'd like to share. The congregation murmured. Heads turned. And then there he was,
Caleb.
walking slowly down the center aisle, a single sheet of paper clutched in both hands. Gone was the tailored suit. He looked smaller in an oversized navy jacket, his eyes red-rimmed, lips dry, hands shaking slightly, not from guilt, but from knowing every eye in that room held a version of the truth he couldn't outrun anymore. He stepped up to the mic, cleared his throat.
Read.
Caleb Whitman, acknowledged that my actions toward Margaret Langley were unethical and manipulative. I falsely claimed power over her medical and financial decisions and misrepresented her mental state for personal gain. The silence was thunderous. Every word echoed. The words that had once been whispered behind my back now rang out in front of every neighbor, every choir member, every elder who had seen me cradle my children in that very pew. Rebecca's jaw tightened. Irene nodded once barely, and I just sat still, spine straight, heart calm. Because this wasn't vindication. It was visibility. I deeply regret the harm I've caused. I will no longer pursue control of Margaret Langley's estate, assets, or medical care in any form. I apologize to her and to all of you for the deception I maintained. When he finished, he stepped back from the mic, eyes down. Not a single person clapped, but several people stood, quietly, one by one. First, the retired librarian who used to hand me her extra rhubarb. Then Janice from the HOA. Then the Thompsons, who had brought casseroles the week Peter passed. They weren't applauding him.
They were standing for me.
I stood slowly, met Caleb's eyes, and then turned away from him, forever. After the service, I didn't linger. But I did walk through the courtyard with Rebecca, the warm June breeze carrying the scent of blooming jasmine and a sense of stillness. Peace, perhaps. Mrs. Dunley from the flower committee hugged me, without asking. Pastor Daniels smiled and said simply, "You're seen." That evening, I uploaded the video of Caleb's apology to the Dropbox. Not for exposure, for record. Because truth must be kept, not just shared. Then I wrote in my notebook, June 23rd, public apology completed. Recorded.
Witnessed.
Community acknowledgement achieved. Emotional closure begun. Later that night, after Rebecca had gone home, I made tea and stepped out onto the back patio. The same one where I used to read aloud to Peter. The one where Caleb once jokingly said, "You'll forget these stories soon enough." I remembered them all. And now they would remember me. Just then a notification buzzed on my phone. An email. From Alyssa. The subject line. I had no idea. Thank you. The message was short. He lied to me too. About everything. But I watched the video. And I want you to know, I left because of you. Because I realized what kind of life I almost signed up for. I hope one day you let yourself feel proud of what you did. You saved more than just yourself. I closed the phone gently, set it on the table, and let myself cry. Not from pain, from relief. Because I had survived being erased. And somehow, in the process, I'd helped someone else find her exit from a lie. I didn't need fireworks. Just the quiet confirmation that I still existed, in full color, beyond the narrative Caleb tried to write for me. That night, before bed, I added one last line to the page. My silence was never weakness. It was strategy. And now, the whole world knows. The letter came by certified mail 3 days after the church apology. A thin, unassuming envelope stamped with the logo of the State Financial Conduct Board. I didn't open it right away. I held it between my fingers, let the weight of it settle. Because I knew this wasn't over. Not yet. Caleb had played with more than emotions. He tampered with accounts, documents, medications. And now the system was waking up. I called Irene. "I just got a letter," I said. "I'm ahead of you," she replied. "I filed the financial abuse report the same day we went public." That's the audit notice. I finally peeled the envelope open. It was terse, official. "Dear Mrs. Langley, We are writing to inform you that a formal investigation has been opened into the financial activities and fiduciary behavior of Mr. Caleb Whitman in relation to your estate and financial accounts. The rest blurred for a second. My eyes filled, not with sadness, with validation. They were watching him now. Rebecca stopped by that afternoon, cradling a half-gallon of orange juice and a folder from her OB appointment. He moved out of the apartment, she said. He's staying with a friend in Tacoma. Won't return my calls. I don't think he will, I said softly. She placed the juice on the counter, then held up a small, black and white printout, an ultrasound. I smiled before she even said it. Her name is going to be Elise, Rebecca said. Middle name, Margaret. I had to sit down. Not from shock. From the sheer, unexpected weight of Grace. You don't have to do that, I whispered. I want to, she said. Because when I tell her stories about strength and survival and knowing your worth, I want her to know where it came from. We cried, quietly, both of us. And later that evening, we sat on the patio with slices of lemon tart and a small bonfire crackling in the pit Peter built years ago. Rebecca brought the manila envelope Caleb had once forced into my hands. The one marked guardianship authorization. I've kept it, she said. It felt like I owed it to you. To hold it. To not look away from what I almost believed. I took it. Turned it over in my hands. I don't need to burn it out of anger, I said. I want to burn it as closure. She nodded. Together, we opened the envelope. Inside, the forged proxy. The blank signature lines. The fake letter from a doctor that Caleb had mocked up to imply I'd missed multiple neurological appointments. All of it. I fed them into the fire, page by page, each curl of paper shriveling into black lace, then smoke. We watched until the flames turned to glowing red embers. No ceremony, no speech, just release. The next day, I got a call from the pharmacist. Mrs. Langley, she said, I just wanted to personally apologize. I reviewed the logs. You were right. Caleb picked up altered medications under your name. We're working with the investigators now. It's all right, I said. Thank you for telling the truth now. And truth kept coming. The notary, Lisa Greer, resigned formally and submitted a written affidavit stating that Caleb pressured her into notarizing documents without presence or ID verification. The real estate agent, Derek Folsom, emailed an apology stating he had no idea the house wasn't legally available for listing and that Caleb had claimed I was already in assisted care. I added it all to the Dropbox. Every thread now tied, every like cataloged and preserved. But the final note came quietly, with no fanfare. An anonymous letter, typed on plain paper, slid into my mailbox without postage. You don't know me, but I was raised by someone like him. Watching you stand up, silently, steadily, gave me the courage to finally walk away. Thank you. You saved more people than you know. I didn't need a name. The impact was enough. That night, I wrote the longest entry yet in my notebook. June 28th, state audit in progress. Medical abuse confirmed. Financial manipulation documented. Community restored. Daughter reconnected. Legacy reclaimed. And below it, just 6 words that finally felt true. I am no longer surviving. I'm living. It was quiet on the morning the audit results arrived. The mailbox creaked in that familiar way as I opened it, the metal still slightly bent from the time Peter backed into it with the riding mower. Funny how the world keeps little scars like souvenirs. Inside, a thick envelope. The return address read, Office of State Investigations, Financial Exploitation Unit. I brought it inside, set it on the kitchen table, and let it sit for a minute. Then I poured a cup of tea. Not because I needed it, but because I could. Because no one was rushing me anymore. No one was watching me through hidden cameras or planting doubts in my medicine bottles or manipulating my calendar. I was free. When I opened the envelope, I read each word carefully, deliberately, just as I used to read bedtime stories to Rebecca, giving each line its full weight. Asterisk, the investigation into Mr. Caleb Whitman has concluded. The following findings have been confirmed. Misuse of elder authority through unauthorized account control. forgery of medical proxy, and durable power of attorney, manipulation of pharmaceutical records and prescription access, intent to defraud through illegal listing of co-owned property. As of this notice, Mr. Whitman has been permanently removed as an authorized agent on all financial, legal, and medical matters related to Margaret Langley. A recommendation for a criminal referral has been submitted to the district attorney's office. You are advised to seek civil remedy through restitution if desired. Asterisk. I didn't smile.
I didn't cry.
I just whispered, "Good." Because justice isn't always loud. Sometimes it's a letter arriving on a Wednesday morning that confirms what you already knew, but finally puts it in ink. Later that afternoon, Irene arrived. She stood in the doorway with a grin and a bottle of sparkling cider. Thought we'd toast. It's not every day a wolf gets declawed. We sat on the porch and watched the sun move across the floorboards while I told her my plan. I don't want to pursue restitution, I said. She raised an eyebrow. You're owed. I know, I nodded. But I'm not interested in dragging this on. He's already lost his business, his fiancée, his name. Let the legal system handle the rest. I want my life back, not revenge. She took a slow sip, then said, "That's the most powerful thing I've heard all year." And I meant it, because revenge is loud and satisfying, but peace is quiet, and it stays. That weekend, I hosted a small dinner.
Just people who'd stood by me.
Irene, Pastor Daniels, Janice from the HOA, the pharmacist who admitted her mistake and promised to retrain her staff, Carl from the Legion Hall, who brought deviled eggs and wore Peter's old vest like it was armor. And, of course, Rebecca. She was radiant now, freer, lighter. We set up folding chairs in the backyard under the string lights Peter had hung a decade ago, the ones that flickered slightly like they still remembered our laughter. We served lemon tart again. And this time, my hands didn't tremble when I placed it on the table. When it got quiet, when the food had settled and the candles burned low, I stood and raised my glass. I don't have a speech, I said. Just a truth. The wind rustled the trees behind me. I spent the last few months fighting to prove I was still capable, still sharp, still worthy of being heard. But what I learned is that I never stopped being those things. I just let someone else convince me I wasn't. Everyone listened. Really listened. I looked at Rebecca, her hands resting on her stomach. When someone tries to erase your identity, your legacy, the best response isn't to scream or beg. It's to survive. Strategically. Quietly. And when the time is right, you take it all back. A single tear slid down her cheek. She didn't wipe it away. I raised my glass higher. To the ones who watch quietly. Who remember everything. Who write it all down. Who rise, not with fire, but with facts. And they toasted. Soft clinks under a warm sky. That night, after everyone left and the porch light hummed softly behind me, I walked into Peter's old study. I opened the notebook, the one that started this war. I flipped through every page, every entry, every date, every insult, every moment of doubt, every bit of manipulation, documented and archived. Then I closed it, wrapped it in twine, and placed it in the top drawer of the desk under a note that read,
Elise.
This is not a diary. It's a blueprint. If anyone ever makes you feel small, read this. Then remember where you come from.
Love. Grandma.
And finally, I wrote the last entry. July 1st, name intact. House mine. Mind clear. Legacy secured. The war is over. I won. And that's the story of how I turned their doubts into my documentation and their lies into my liberation. If you've ever felt erased, underestimated, or ignored, just know this. You don't have to shout to be heard. You just have to know who you are and never stop writing it down. Like, subscribe, and tell me in the comments, what's one thing no one can take from you? Because when they try to write your ending, you write a better one. Thanks for watching.